There has been the conversation of politics of dynasties versus hustler nation, and you saw President Uhuru Kenyatta during the 41st and the final public commemoration of the death of first President Jomo Kenyatta. The now President Kenyatta said that that will never happen again, but also insisted, gave a comment on dynasties, saying that some of those things are insults. Let's just listen into what he had to say, as well as the response that was given the following day by Deputy President William Ruto.
But, you know, when you hear people out there, you know, they talk, oh, huyu mtu fulani, dynasty hii, sijui dynasty hii. It's not about that. Leadership is not about where you were born. It's not about where you came from. It's not about the color of your skin. It is not about your tribe. It is just about a desire to serve, a desire to do good, a desire to make a difference in the lives of people. Don't do something to hurt your brother and sister. Some of the words people spew, you forget that there are families behind those words that you spew. Lakini hiyo ni shauri yenu, kwa sababu kila mtu ako na haki ya kufanya vile anataka.
Rais alisema vizuri jana kwamba uongozi sio kabila, sio dini, sio mali, sio mahali mtu anatoka. Uongozi ni maono na mipango ya maendeleo. Uongozi wa Kenya haiwezi kuamuliwa ati ni kwa ukoo fulani, ati ni kwa jamii fulani, ati ni kwa mtu fulani, ati ni kwa sababu ya mali, ati ni kwa sababu ya mtu anatoka. Sisi wote ni sawa mbele ya Mungu, na sisi wote ni sawa mbele ya wapigaji kura. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Na step ya kwanza ya kutafuta uongozi wa nchi hii, you must build alliances, mpaka ufanye urafiki na viongozi kutoka jamii zingine.
So obviously very divergent views, but presented to sound as if they are the same views. But I want to begin with you, Mheshimiwa Oluoch. And do you think it is a possibility that a person who does not come from a political dynasty, if that ever existed, to ascend to the level of president of this country? I mean, we've had how many presidents? 4 presidents, 2 of them from the same family, one from the Moi family and the other one from the Moi family. Is it a possibility that anyone else can ascend to that level?
I think it is possible because, first of all, Jomo Kenyatta was not in any form or description a member of a dynasty when he became president. Moi certainly wasn't. Kibaki, in spite of his social and economic status, we don't know who was his father before that. So the whole question of dynasty, I think it's completely misplaced. And I was just looking up the meaning of dynasty. I mean, it's like a bloodline, ancestral sort of way of inheriting leadership. And where you describe dynasty, if, for example, you have in Uganda the Kabaka, it's an established form of leadership that is recognized, and you know that the next Kabaka is going to be the son of the first in line of the son of the Kabaka who is currently there. You go to Japan, the emperor, for example, if the emperor dies, the next in line, it is a lineage, bloodline sort of thing. Right. I think in the United Kingdom, in England, you have the Queen, and the next in line is Charles. That's how the classic definition of a dynasty. If you look at the current setup, other than the fact that the president shares the name Kenyatta,
he is the son.
He is the son. But you can see that he has struggled to be where he was, in spite of Moi trying to name him. He lost. And he's been there, he has tried. You look at Raila Odinga, you try to describe him as dynasty. If there is anybody who has struggled to put in democratic space, a dynasty would not have struggled and been in detention and gone through all the kind of things that Raila Odinga has gone through. Dynasty is a very smooth, flowing way of handing over leadership from one person to the other.
Nevertheless,
so, yes.
Nevertheless. Since before you go, but would you ignore the fact that there are political families in this country. You're talking about the Kenyatta family. There has been President Jomo Kenyatta, then President Uhuru Kenyatta. There was a member of parliament by the name Peter Muigai Kenyatta. Then if you're talking about the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga family, Jaramogi Oginga was the first vice president, then there's Raila Odinga, then there's Oburu Odinga. If you talk about kingpins in different regions, if you're talking about the central or the Mount Kenya region, Kenyatta family is. If you're talking,
I think what you are not
just a moment. If you're talking about the Nyanza region, then Odinga is. If you're talking about the Rift Valley, before William Ruto, there was the Moi family, and Gideon Moi started that he might be eyeing the presidency. Don't you think there's a place of political families since independence, and that may sort of propel them or give them a better position in terms of running for office in future?
No, I think that one was answered by the president on during the funeral on Saturday. Mm-hmm. He says, not that's actually Thursday when he was doing the memorial. Mm-hmm. He said it is not those issues about where you are born or the status of your birth. Mm-hmm. It is about what you are capable of doing. And if you see what has been happening, the narrative created in the last 1 year mm-hmm. in our political discourse, it is about the hustler nation versus the dynasty. And the only reason to do that mm-hmm. is to clog.
Who's been doing that?
Is to foul the air. Yeah, the Tanga team have been saying everywhere. You have seen even in almost every forum they come. Mm-hmm. They say we are the hustler nation. We don't want people to be programmed about their families. That one is meant just to foul the air. Just create a toxic environment mm-hmm. where you divide it us versus them. Mm-hmm. And by the time you do finishing of the divisions, mm-hmm. you create an environment whereby people don't question your credentials. Mm-hmm. They don't ask you what you are capable of doing mm-hmm. or what is your history. Mm-hmm. In this pattern of the dynasty.
Okay.
Right. If you go to 1992, mm-hmm. YK 92, the leader of the hustler nation voted for Moi. If you go to 97, he was with Moi. If you go to 2002, he was with Uhuru. If you go to 2007, he was with Raila. 2013 went to Uhuru. 2017 to Uhuru. That is one leader character.
Don't you find something unique in those names that you mentioned? Because those they have been they have a political history as old as the independence of this country.
I am actually driving a point here. Uh-huh. You know, when a cat is born, it is blind. Mm-hmm. After a few days, the eyes open. Mm-hmm. So the question is to the leader mm-hmm. of the hustler nation. Mm-hmm. When you did all these things, 92, 97, 22, 27, 2013, and 2017, mm-hmm. you followed us that route. At what level have you realized now you need to turn around and now become a hustler?
Right. So, Muthiora, given your history in politics so far, Kenyans saw you as one of the youngest deputy president candidates that was flagged in the last election. You're the one who appeared, you addressed Kenyans. When you had these sentiments from President Uhuru Kenyatta on Thursdays, were they genuine? Do you feel like if you were to run again, if you were to be on the ballot come 2022, you stand at the same chance of becoming president as someone from a dynasty family?
Absolutely. I believe that he didn't have to defend himself. And let me lend you my expertise of the degree I have in mathematics. Kenya has had just 4 presidents since independence. Statistically, that data is too small for us to make a conclusion that we have dynasties in Kenya. Mm-hmm. Now, I take you back to the 1990s. Raila Odinga mm-hmm. was forced out of his father's party. He could not have his way. Obviously, he's an Odinga, so there's capital he milks from the title. Mm-hmm. But then it was not handed over to him. He has had to fight his way to where he is.
Fine. But do you think if President Uhuru did not have the name Kenyatta as his surname, he would be president today?
I believe he would have had a chance.
Chance is not an issue.
In 1997, his father's people in Gatundu mm-hmm. rejected him for position of member of parliament.
Yeah. Okay.
So the title does help that he's a Kenyatta because people do not have to interrogate his curriculum vitae. Why? Because
is that fair?
It's not fair, but then he did not choose to be born into that family.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The reality is mm-hmm. when your father is a farmer, you will interact with jembes
and tractors. Uhuru, from when he was very young, he interacted with presidents, with ministers. That was his cup of tea. So we cannot fault him for being born into that family. What we should do is fault ourselves for not interrogating the candidates when they present their cases to us.
All right.
My father bought me my first shoe in 1981 from a Mr. Onyango on the street for 60 shillings because he could not afford the butter shoes. Why am I saying this? Today, as you can see, the gentleman who did not have shoes is sitting at the high table. With the son of the founding father. When you see some of us go to church and pray and lift up our hands, sometimes shed tears, make this or that contribution, it is because we cannot forget where God has brought us from.
So that is the Deputy President, of course, saying that despite the fact that he came from a humble background, that did not... You didn't go there, so let me just take it to Kibra, where Chris Darling, a DJ, was bowing before Baba, Raila Odinga, begging for his support to become a member of parliament, a candidate for member of parliament in their constituency in the upcoming by-election.
24 people have been floated so far for this candidature. Let's see if you haven't seen the clip yet. This is how it happened.
kabla watikeni wananagwa na kina TJ wote. Babu yuko hapa na mimi niko hapa. Waje nipigwe risasi, wewe ubaki tuongoze katika kitu. Na mimi naomba sana unishike mkono baba. Asante sana, Mungu akubariki. Asanteni sana.
Obviously, several thoughts around what Chris Darling just did there, but you cannot ignore the fact that they call him an enigma of Kenyan politics. The position that Raila Odinga occupies, despite that he has not been president, but he has that political muscle coming from a political family. So what is this that propels these historical political families to where they are in terms of influence that would be so difficult for a person who is coming from the humble background that the rest of the Kenyans may come from?
I think it's a bit of what he said earlier. The orientation that you have as a political, when you're a political family, as opposed to one that is not political, is that your children always grow up mirroring, shadowing, and even in school, I can tell you, and I hope my kid don't end up being called dynasties, is that my 8-year-old girl already has run for governor when it's been put up in school. And when she was asked, what are you going to do to your students, she's called Antoinette from my name, she said, I will buy all of you chicken and chips every day when you come to school. She got elected as a result of that. Is a prefect and a governor in her school. But I believe she mirrors and sees some of what her father does. And you can't blame her.
You buy your constituents chicken every day.
No, I think she knows that you ought to give a promise that would sufficiently be able to capture. And if you tell a class 6, 7, 3 students, what would capture them at that particular time, the imagination, is if you buy them chips and chicken. And she was able to do that. And you can't blame somebody or a kid coming out of a family where the father or somebody is a politician for always understanding and looking and being mentored and finding out what they do. So I think it's as a result of this that you'll find that families that have been in leadership, there is always a possibility that somebody else from that family will come out. And that doesn't mean that they're dynasties. And I just want to capture, before I pass on the Nini, to what the Deputy President was trying to say, is that the president, his president, sitting there with him. When they ran, the president was not the son of the founding father. All of a sudden, now he's discovered that he's the one who came, bought shoes at 60 shillings because he could not afford butter. And now, many years later, the president is the son of the founding president. What he forgets is this, is that for over a period of 2-3 decades, he was, though he wasn't in a political family, he was mentored and understudied people whom he now calls dynasties. He ran in YK92 with Jirongo, and for the longest time they are the people and the powers behind YK92. He was later mentored and was behind with Raila Odinga for close to a decade. In fact, the politician that he is today, I think very largely he owes it to Raila Odinga, the politics that he has learned, the mentorship that he got from Raila Odinga. From there, he went back to Kenyatta. He's been to Kenyatta twice. So for 30 years, the money that he has made is not from the 60 bob and the selling of chicken. It is the money he made in YK92 and the connections with Uhuru Kenyatta, the platform he got with Raila Odinga, and finally with Uhuru Kenyatta.
Right.
So if there is any dynasty, anybody who has benefited from dynasty, even though he cannot quite be called a dynasty, if there is such a thing, it is William Samoei Ruto.
Right. Honorable Maura, let me rope you into the conversation as well. The statement that came from President Uhuru Kenyatta on Thursday, was that a response of the 30th May breakfast 2019, what Deputy President William Ruto said then?
No, actually, it is after that Safari Park comment that has been a build up. That has been the pillar and the foundation rock
so on which
Ruto's campaign has been building up. And you remember very well the president has been very keen that his deputy doesn't launch a massive campaign for 2022 when they are into the legacy corner. And the reason being one, when we met in August 2017, that first, he asked us, all of us, members of parliament, please don't do any campaigns for the next 4 years. I need my legacy. And on the 4th year, I'm the one who is going to launch the campaign for my deputy to succeed me. But if you see what has happened is that the members of parliament, those who are told that message, are the ones who accompany the deputy president in every forum, just launching the campaign for 2022. Even though he himself will come out and say, no, we are supporting the president and the Big Four. That is the only time you hear Big Four and the president.
Right. Muthiora.
Yeah.
Come 2022, do you think, or rather after 2022, that we'll still see the same big pins, this political creme de la creme still within our political arena? Come 10 years from now, will their same kids, as Antonio Loach is putting it, be in one of our political ballots?
Yes, of course.
And is that okay?
There's no problem with that. Kenya is a democracy. What a democracy does is it gives opportunity to all the citizens as long as you meet the criteria that has been set. Like you just heard him say, his daughter is following in his footsteps. You cannot stand in her way.
Yes, but let's say if a young person from Kibera wanted to run for president tomorrow, and a different person from one of these dynasty families wants to run as well, the opportunity is there, definitely, but it's not a fair game. One person has more financial muscles, political muscles backing him or her, while the other one is starting from scratch.
That is something I'm well aware of, and that's why I need you to follow my journey from back when I launched my presidential bid in 2017 to 2022. And for people like the deputy president, I want them to watch my story unfold, to see how in 2022 I will ascend to the presidency without carrying the tag of a hustler versus the dynasties. Why? Because to be a leader, what you need to have are ideas that will deliver for your people. What you need to have is the right vision. Then you need character.
You actually believe if you run against Raila Odinga and William Ruto, and probably Gideon Moi if he decides to run, you actually believe you will defeat them?
In the morning, all we need to do is to level the playing field, ensure that the votes as cast by the citizens are counted as they should.
But the dynasty affects democracy. we can't ignore it.
So then, in this case, we are not talking about dynasties. What we are talking about is impunity and corruption. So we shouldn't be focusing our attention on something that's not the problem. Let us deal with what the problem is. Electoral malfeasance.
So for you, the bigger issue here is not the dynasties, it's the impunity and the corruption.
Yes, exactly. Because people with resources will buy voters, something that shouldn't be allowed in a democracy, because it tilts the advantage to the person who controls the resources. If we level the playing field for everyone, I versus Uhuru Kenyatta stands a chance.
Right.
All it takes is my vision, my character, and my passion to diligently serve the people.
How long until Kenya can see a president who doesn't come from one of these big family names? How long?
Say 3 years, because I'm a contender for the election in 2022.
Honorable Oluoch doesn't seem to
We already had 3 presidents who come. I mean, why are we forgetting where Jomo Kenyatta came from? I mean, why are we forgetting Moi was never a dynasty? Why are we forgetting that Kibaki was not a dynasty? Where is this argument coming from? And then lastly, I like to flip this argument. Will William Ruto stand when his son, I believe one of his son looks like he wants to stand? There were even rumors that he may want to stand in Kibra. Will he be standing there as his son is called a dynasty? Because even though the father hustled, quote unquote, the son will now be referred to as a dynasty. Should we, when he runs for any seat, member of parliament, governor, whatever, should we use that argument and say William Ruto's son is a dynasty?
Okay. All right, I think we need to move on to the next conversation.
Maybe just before you do, I need to call out something from the clip you played about events that unfolded in Kibra. We saw a young leader bow to Right Honorable Raila Odinga. Well, one thing I would want to urge upcoming leaders is that sometimes you do not have to try too hard.
Why do you think he did that?
What he's looking to do is to carry the same narrative that he is loyal, when we know you cannot prove your loyalty by bowing down to a man.
It's because he knows he needs the backing of Raila Odinga.
It's not true. Ken Okoth did not need Raila Odinga's blessings. Okoth Obado did not have the ODM ticket in Migori, even though Migori is an ODM zone. What he needed to do was to sell his ideas, make the people believe that he has the passion to serve them. So I can call this right now that the voters out there can see right through your deceit. And that's why I do not think Chris Darling will make it.
Okay, all right. That's your opinion about Chris Darling, but obviously it's not lost of what those events displayed.